And alrighty, here we are again. I had some other stuff planned earlier this week, abandoned those plans, decided that I'd pick up on something that actually makes sense. And it's only because everybody thinks they're right or thinks they know what's right or wrong, that I speak on this. So by the time they actually do get it, it'll be too late. I didn't put the dot, dot, dot or anything like that or the question mark. I don't want anybody to feel like that. But there's a lot of different little things I could talk about and try to make fun of people's understanding or to pretty much shit on what they think is knowledge. But what I'm going to do instead of that is I'm going to put it to you like this is by the time they get it. So if you're not part of the they, if you've made yourself an exclusive group, you know, uh, I don't normally go for the alpha, beta, sigma, omega thing, but if I had to be one, I'd be an omega male. And to most of these simple ass niggas, they think I was an alpha. Right on. You don't need a bunch of money to be an alpha. They say this all the time. So why would I need a bunch of money? So by the time they actually do get it, they'll realize that their whole way of thinking is flawed at best. I heard an individual say earlier this week, talking about how if a customer gets a certain amount of service, right? And this isn't on YouTube. This is an individual that I was seeing face to face. And they said that if a person gets a certain level of service, price is not an issue. Price is never a problem, right? As long as the service is, for a want of a better terms, exquisite. So if the service is so unbelievable, so remarkable, so fascinating, and so amazing, that an individual feels that no matter what you ask for, it wouldn't be too much so long as I have it, so long as I feel that this is a worthy enough service for what you're asking for, then it would be this case. But what you have in this country and in this earth are individuals who've never had to actually do anything. So by the time they get it, they'll realize that you didn't do very much. For you to be in a land that, excuse the sirens, there's a lot going on in every city and metropolitan area in the United States. My area is no different. Having said that, as I was saying, by the time that they actually do get that what they've done or what they're doing is no thing special, it is a broken mirror image. Did you hear me? Not even a mirror image. It's a broken mirror image of what it should be. And they believe that they have accumulated or they have given perpetuity, continuity, and longevity, if you will, posterity in some instances to a system that was made to fail. My point being this. There's four different articles right here, right now. There's four different links. And one is to, I got the two of the same links. Let me get one of them out of here. And I need, not the Taliban link, Ed Troyer. Give me one moment. Copy. Bam, 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 bam. There we go. So, as I was saying, you got these four different links over here. Very different points of view and contrast in life. But what they all tell me is that by the time individuals who believe in what these cats claim they believe in, cats being an informal way of calling them people since everyone wants to be a kid. But these individuals, more proper and not forcing me to call someone a person who's not a person, these individuals continue to perpetrate a lifestyle that is not conducive for the environment of Earth. One of them, I will read some of it, but I will not read all of it. It's the New York Post. It's a New York Post. It's about the Taliban to reward suicide bombers' families with cash and land. And I want you to understand that this pretty much delegitimizes their entire faith. Because if they were true martyrs, then their reward is in heaven with 70 virgins. So I don't understand why you would reward them again on the earth if they're going to be rewarded in heaven. Can you hear me? If the ways of which they were speaking were so righteous, I don't see why they all just don't put on the vest and get it over with. By the time they get that, there are a group of individuals who come from a part of the planet, a part of the earth, that no one who is considered a man in the eyes of the Most High God seeds from. They will then obviously begin to understand what they are faced with. And here it goes. It says the Taliban have promised plots of land to family members of suicide bomber who targeted U.S. and Afghan forces. A spokesman of the Interior Ministry spoke or tweeted Tuesday. The tweet posted in English echoed an announcement made the previous day by acting Interior Minister Sirajuddin Haqqani, who offered clothes and roughly $112 to a dozen of male family members of martyred bombers who died for Islamic jihad and sacrifices. Stop right there. I need y'all to understand. There's so much more going on with this. Okay? There's so much more happening with this than y'all think. By the time they get it, it'll be too late. If you are who you say you are, then the reward that you are deserving or whatever will come to you naturally. You'll have to have it in the most natural bounds. Follow what I'm saying, y'all. If you're a farmer and you farm every year, so let's say all you farm is wheat, right? And let's say the wheat that you farm is a rye wheat. That means that every year this is a consistent thing for you. Okay? There is no by the time you get it, you understand what you have to do. You know that if you don't get up early enough and don't till the land, right? And don't don't control for the pesticides, find different ways that will allow for a greater yield. This is what learning is about, by the way. Then you're not going to yield the same thing that you yield every year. There are going to be years where the wind helps you. There's going to be many more years where the wind hurts you, where the sun comes down just enough or maybe not enough, where there's not enough water. There's going to be so many different things that happen that what do you do to change so that way you can still get something from this? There's individuals who don't understand that by the time they get it, there'll be nothing for them to gain. For they'll have put all the energy, all their stock into something that actually has no true real value. See, this is why when it says that they have inherited lies, vanities, and no thing of any true profit or any real profit or any real gain, however, whatever the real translation is, they've gained nothing for what they believe. Right on? They don't have anything. So what they get in return at the end of it is not what they sought themselves putting in. Because let me say it like this. If a man cuts down trees in one part of the earth, you can't expect that if he goes to another part of the earth and cuts down trees, that he'll get the same quality of wood. So the same quality of work he did in one region, he may not be able to do in another, lest he get the same quality of wood. Now, the extremes or the logistical difficulties of procuring such an item may be extreme now in this case, but it explains that they know what it is that they have to do to get the desired result. Where there's an individual who's born now who believes that because they were born in a place that always had internet, they don't know about any of that. They're like, well, that's not real to me. But you still eat food that gets cooked on a fire when you go to a barbecue, when somebody grills. So as fake as it is to you, you still go hiking and you live not in four walls, right? Or you live in an improvised setting, to say the least. Think about that. Some people camp under the stars. That's why I'm saying that. Point being this. By the time they get it, they'll realize that they ruined the entire earth. See, I was going to read the book of Enoch. I'm going to read this small pivot, little piece, and then I got to be done. Chapter 7 of the book of Enoch, and then chapter 8, and then I'm done. There's 12 verses altogether, or 8 verses, but really long verses in the second part. And all the others with them took unto themselves wives, and each one chose himself one, chose for himself one. It's talking about when the angels came down and made it with the women. And they began to go unto them and to defile themselves with them. So the angels were becoming defiled by the reason of sleeping with the earth women. And they taught them charms and enchantments and the cutting of roots and made them acquainted with plants. So these are your witch doctors, your so-called doctors, your wizards, your warlocks, to become from their loins. Let's just go ahead and keep reading. It's everything that you don't think it is, and these would be your modern day scientists of related studies. And they became pregnant, and they bare great giants whose height were 3,000 ells, 4,500 feet tall, who consumed all the acquisitions of men. And when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind. Word's not humanity. Anyway, let's keep reading, but let's understand that the term umas is a newer term in the Latinist language. We can't depend on that to even be the true Latin language. Let's go ahead and keep reading. And they began to sin against birds and beasts and reptiles and fish, and to devour one another's flesh and drink the blood. Then the earth laid accusation against the lawless ones. So the law, before there was even a law to be known, was not to consume one another. Can you dig it? Which is why there was what? Herbs and fruit for people to eat. By the time they get it, they won't get it. I'm not saying that vegans are better than you or me, because I eat meat still. But I do understand that there's a level of holiness when one abstains from eating another animal. It is holy. Chapter 8. And Azazel taught men to make, but if you live in holiness and practice wickedness, you are no less wicked than the most wicked. Let me say it like that. Chapter 8. And when Azazel taught men to make swords and knives and shields and breastplates, and made known to them metals of the earth, and the art of working them, and bracelets and ornaments, and the use of antimony, and the beautifying of eyelids, and and all kinds of costly stones, and all coloring tinctures. And there arose much godlessness, and they committed fornication, and they were led astray, and became corrupt in all their ways. Simjaza taught enchantments and root cuttings. Eremos, the resolving of enchantments. So how do you stop an enchantment? Badakijal taught astrology. Kokabel taught the constellations. Ezekiel taught the knowledge of clouds. Arakil, the signs of the earth. Samsiel, the signs of the sun. And Sadiel, the course of the moon. And as men perished, they cried, and their cry went up to heaven. Stop right there. By the time they learn, by the time they get it, by the time they see it, y'all, it will be too late. So you believe that they know more than the Most High God. I'm telling y'all right now, what I just read to you is why by the time they get to your boy, it'll be the end. Who cares when it's over and you can do nothing about it? Because at that point, it's done. And nobody wants to hear your sorry, lame excuses. I know I don't. Word? We don't make excuses. We make it happen. That's what we do around here. Okay? I don't make excuses. I just make it happen. By the time they get it, y'all, will they have understood that? Let's read another one. Condoleezza Rice. Condoleezza Rice says that while January 6th Capitol riot was wrong, it's time to move on. Stop right there. This is why they shit on Colin Powell, y'all. Do you understand? This is why they shit on him. Because Colin Powell said that it was time to do the thing, which is to convict, or maybe he just didn't stand by the riot altogether. But I'm going to assume that a part of him wanted these people seriously convicted. Y'all do realize that when September 11th happened, tempers were flaring, emotions ran high. Nobody understands. Am I the only one who remembers? Surely it's not just me and Andre Wickham and Roger Spice and Corey Tyler. Right on. Surely it's not just me and brother JP Hope. It can't be. Surely it's not just Mike Woodard who gets it. Surely it's not just Sister Darkchild who gets it, or Adrian Smith. Surely there's many others who have to understand. Surely it's not just Leonard Judah or brother D Mac. But if it is, then we are the few, the very, very few, the less than the less than the less than of a percent who understand what's going on. Anytime you say it's time to move on from wickedness, it means that you're wicked yourself. Let's just go ahead and read just a little bit. Listen. I need y'all. We're only going to read the first sentence. It says a mouthful in the whole thing. I've already read most of it. I don't need to do this. Y'all need to read it. Former Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice said on Tuesday ABC's The View that the January 6th riot at the U.S. Capitol, was an assault, in quotes, on law and order. But it's time, unquote, to move on. What? Could you imagine that if that was a bunch of niggas who did that? Please, man. First off, they would have got gunned up. Okay? They'd have got touched up with those weapons. Yeah? And there wouldn't be all this talk of are we going to just let it be and move on? But just hear my point, though. Colin Powell died after taking the vaccine. While they won't say the vaccines killed anyone, they'll blame someone like myself who's not vaccinated. I won't be vaccinated. I told y'all a year ago, if not better, that my God would not want us to do that. To give unto Caesar what is Caesar's. Right on? Can you dig it? Word? Okay, then. So when you give unto Caesar what is Caesar's, it's not your job to give that which is God unto Caesar. It's the Most High God's to keep and for yours to give to him. If you rend something from yourself and give it to the character of, at best, a man, and at worst, a Gentile, not a man, then you've done yourself no justice. Can you dig that? And played yourself a fool. Because guess what? If you sit down and say Colin Powell did what was most logical at that time, which was try to adjust a situation that no one knew. How did you know that there weren't weapons of mass destruction? See, let's say Colin Powell's I'm going to play angel's advocate, not devil's, angel's advocate, right? And as the advocate of the angel who wants to destroy mankind and see us all die, I say, well, if I don't stand on the side of saying anything, they'll say that I'm part of the problem and I'm weak. He's not the same as he used to be. Same individuals won't break down that 20 years ago, the earth was far more bigoted and racist than it is now. As far as as far as our understanding of what a true skinhead, a true whatever, before they decided I need to grow my hair out and not look as like a racist as I normally do. See, by the time they get it, it'll be too late, y'all. There's no more time to get it than now. I do what I like. I hope you do what you like. Right on? Because I'm willing and ready to pay the consequences with my life and with my soul. I hope that those who would seek to take my life are ready to have their life taken. Because if you gamble on ass, okay, you might lose all that you have. That's a fact. And it takes some ass to get some. So, if you're going to gamble on ass, fuck around if you want to. That's the truth. Having said that, no one's going to tell me that Colin Powell is less honorable than Condoleezza Rice. You can't even convince me of that. A chick who probably laid on her back for an unknowable number of swine-tillions, as Andre put it, is never going to tell me that an individual who was light-skinned, for most people's understanding, had to be black. Look at his hair, right? He's black, no doubt. No matter how light his skin is, look at his hair. But a chick like Condoleezza Rice can say what she say. So which is a bigger affront on your democracy? A few American martyrs, victims of so-called 9/11, or traitors to those victims? And she's saying it's time to move on from the traitors of these individuals. Everyone who went to the nation's capital betrayed everybody who died in 9/11. And I'm the first to say it. Just like that. Talking about people who look like us. Any old swine-tillion could have been uttered those words off their lips. But I'm telling y'all today, by the time they get it, they won't have even understood what they done. They're the worst of the worst of the worst. There is none likened to them. They are a distinguished group of explicitly, diabolically wicked and evil, trite individuals, be it man or Gentile or anything in between. See, by the time they get it, it'll be too late. You understand? By the time they really understand and get it, by the time they really hear it, it's done. It's over with. What can they do with somebody like me? But try to get me out the way. But they've kept me out the way. They've suppressed me greatly. But it doesn't matter. Because guess what? When I speak the words that I speak face to face in the flesh to people, they hold the same value and weight that I know that they merit. And individuals normally have to at least consider greatly what I'm saying. Because if you attack what I'm saying and then attack your own belief, how intelligent, how wise are you? Are you really a follower or are you just some blind zealot? Having said that, for any of you who believe that a man who was drafted, because y'all forget that about Colin Powell, he was drafted. Yes, he was. Look it up. Drafted into Vietnam, became somebody. And people want to say that they're messing with a dude like that, or he was a this, he was a that his whole life. They're literally mentally retarded. Literally. If you can say anything bad about Colin Powell, as far as what he tried to do, because he didn't want to go to Iraq at first. Then he got behind the WMD. See, I was a little boy, but I remember the conversations being had amongst grown black people. If he didn't do it, so as they used to say when I was a boy, the white folks would have got him out of there. They either would have killed him or they would have pushed him all the way out of power. So everything he done in his life to get to that point would have been for nothing. All the bloodshed, all the lives taken, on account of what he said, would have been for nothing. He took the vaccine so that way all that he said wouldn't have been for nothing. And it killed him in my mind. Yes, he was old. You could claim it was old age. But if he was relatively active or healthy before this, there's no need to believe that anything other than the vaccine took his life. By the time they get it, y'all, they'll have herd immunity with the vaccine by mandate. Will black people be in prison or killed, murdered in the street, enslaved because they don't want to get vaccinated? Will white, so-called white, like I said, the squintillion, little pink ones, will the pink, red, brown, and yellow get snatched up, murked out, forced into imprisonment if they don't want to get that, that thing in their arm? So on one of these sides, you know what I mean? I'm not getting it, so you ain't got to worry about it. I'll be long dead before I take a vaccine alive. I'll be long dead. Let's say it like that. I haven't taken a shot since I got flu shots years ago. I told y'all this. I'll continue to tell y'all this. I took a great number of flu shots coming from boot camp all the way to when I got home. Okay. And after that, I've never taken another shot again. I just don't believe in it. I just don't believe in that. Because I don't know what they gave me. That's the truth. Just to tell you the honest to God truth. I don't know what I was given. They said it was this, but it could have been anything. You're government property, so they could try out anything on you. And it doesn't, and see what y'all need to understand, it's called a permissible exposure limit. And I keep telling y'all this. Someone can give you something and expose you to it and it not be enough to kill you. But it may be enough to alter certain things about you that were a certain way before. This is why when babies are given all these inoculations at birth, you don't know what that does to someone. You don't know how that makes them develop or not develop. Right. Maybe as a crack baby, maybe I'm not here if they don't give me all those inoculations. Who knows? Maybe I'm crazy like the rest of those niggas who were born like that. People say crack baby, cigarette baby, whatever. I was born underweight, undersized, and all that. Beat the odds. Y'all just don't understand. See, when your parents tell you certain things about their life, you have to honor what they're saying. So if a person says that they were introduced to a certain narcotic before you were born, and you're the first of your siblings by this person that you know of, you have to say, well, oh, that means that I could be fucked up because who knows what you were doing when you were getting with my mom. Right. It's just a matter of honesty with yourself. See, by the time they get it, they'll realize that I'm an exceptional individual who I haven't asked anyone for. What I've asked for is to get what it is that I should have had at first, which is a clean slate to do everything that I needed to do. Wasn't given that. I've had people who were supposed to be family literally work against me. And now for the first time in my life, now that I just don't deal with them, I'm just okay with not dealing with them. It seems like I've been freed from the same kind of thing, but it's like they would no less blame me for something like they blame Colin Powell. That's the kind of individuals I deal with. Right on. They would say, oh, well, it's because he did this. This is why all this happened. What? Shit happened 20 years ago. Word? I was a little boy. But hold on to that. Because by the time they get it, by the time you realize you were dealing with somebody who was exceptional and special, you don't get to realize that. It's already over. That's why I can sip on a beer and laugh about it, because all those other individuals tried so hard to please the people and to please their enemies. What makes me different is that I do neither. I don't care. I don't care what anybody thinks. Ain't nobody paying no rent up in this motherfucker. Word. Ain't nobody getting no cashier checks made up in this motherfucker. But the people I know. Can you dig it? You ain't doing nothing for I. You ain't getting no money orders made. Nothing. Y'all don't put on. Word. And I don't ask you to put on. Because, nigga, my plate is my plate. And that's the facts. That is the facts. The whole truth, nothing but the truth. Why would I allow for my justice of mind and judgment and I be changed by a gift? I just as easily break it as I would keep it. There's more than one thing that an individual can engage in and be great at. And I need y'all to understand that greatness is not measured by physical acts every time, because the the prescription of the law was as much a physical act as it was a spiritual one. And I could argue it was more spiritual than it was physical. Because for Moses to not eat for 40 days and to be sustained by the presence of God alone or the Lord alone is amazing. Now you'll say he's fake, but tell me that Buddha's real. And tell me that Muhammad is real. Sure, whatever you say. See what I'm saying? Someone who actually stood for something righteous. Muslims eat nasty ass critters and critters out of the water. Don't care what it looks like. They have no standards. Most High God said, if it don't have scales and fins, don't eat it. That's called class, my friends. Class. And by the time they get it, it'll be too late. It'll be over. I'm supposed to sit here and feel bad for somebody who don't understand what was laid out thousands of years ago. You know, I blessed my brother. Almost messed my money up trying to help this dude these last few weeks. And I just laughed because the man said something to me that made it to where it was easy just to pull away from all the assistance I was giving this nigga. I said, oh. And he said, just like this quote, said, we're in Tacoma, Washington. We're not in Detroit, Michigan. I'm not in Philadelphia. I'm not in Chicago. Okay? I'm not in Miami. Can you dig what I'm talking about? Right? I'm not in Kansas City, Kansas City. I'm not in Kansas City, Kansas, or Kansas City, Missouri, nigga. Or St. Louis, none of that. East St. Louis, none of that. Yeah? I'm not in Omaha. I'm not in Fresno. All right? I'm not in Reno. I'm not in Vegas. I'm not in Phoenix. I'm not in none of these places, bruh. From SoCal on up. I'm not nowhere, none of those places. I'm in Tacoma, Washington. And this nigga fixed his motherfucking lips to tell me that I don't respect money unless it comes in chunks. Did I take my brother's whole head off while he was driving or try to? No. The thought kind of crossed my mind like, I should just hit this dude as hard as I can. Nigga, if somebody give you $300, $400, $500, that's money. Word? That's money. If you don't have no money, nothing. Fuck what your big plans are. Make small plans and live with the results. See, I think it's so crazy that how all these individuals, once again, my brother, will he ever get it? I don't know. He might have been wicked from the womb. I don't know. He might just be not helpable. It's my own kin. Love him to life. Love him to death. Somebody do something to my brother, I'm gonna do whatever they did to him, to them, and their whole clan. So it don't matter. But having said that, I'm the type of individual where it's like, I'm not gonna let you bring me down either. You're not gonna bring me to my feet. I refuse. I refuse. I've been in situations that most people would never ever want to be in. And most people would have probably been made to be destitute for the rest of their life, not to have nothing. Y'all do realize that I just never moved on from where I was at as far as like a mindset concerned myself, which is why I never did much more than I just don't feel like there's that much to do. You can get a house or whatever, it doesn't matter because when tragedy strikes and you're not above it. And because you live in a land that was built on unscrupulous activity, you may become a victim of unscrupulous activity, even though you don't readily engage in it, even if you did, or even if you never did. I just think that when you don't look at the truth enough, you will be confused. Let's just look at this part right here. This first link, right? And it says just like this: Factory farms of disease. How industrial chicken production is breeding the next pandemic. One day last December, I'm not going to read too much of this. Won't read enough. Once again, it's upon you to read your own self. One day last December, 101,000 chickens at a gigantic farm near the city of Astrakhan in southern Russia started to collapse and die. Tests by the State Research Center showed that a relatively new strain of lethal avian flu known as H5N8 was circulating, and within days, 900,000 birds at the Vladimirskaya plant were hurriedly slaughtered to prevent an epidemic. Avian flu is the world's other ongoing pandemic, and H5N8 is just one strain that has torn through thousands of chickens, ducks, and turkey flocks across nearly 50 countries, including Britain, in recent years, and show no sign of stopping. Stop right there. By the time they get it, y'all, they just don't understand. They don't care. Most of the individuals who listen to me don't care. There's a small number. Because y'all got to understand, when you come and give your the true the true the true 30 who show up from time to time, right? They're not the handful of views I get each and every time. I know they're not. There's a lot of individuals who come here just to hear what I have to say. I don't have to keep reading article after article after article. I don't have to report and restate so-called fact after fact after fact. I just need to repeat it to you that by the time you get it, if you're one of these individuals, it'll be too late. How do you expect to overcome something that you don't think is happening? So if it's happening in Russia, why can't it be happening in the US? Ask yourselves that. Ask yourselves why all this chicken and all these other products have been recalled. Right. It's a big deal. Big, 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 big deal. But you don't mind that because guess what? This is why they're trying to figure out ways to make you live forever in your mind, but and be dead in the body and in the spirit and soul. In your mind and what is considered a conscious, they're trying to figure out how to take that and put it somewhere else. Into a tomato can if they like. But you have to be wise enough to understand that what they're giving you is not righteous. It's unclean, it's unholy. But they'll tell you that this is the most technological, most advanced way to do it. Yet, for some odd reason, animals that would have never died under regular circumstances dropping dead. They don't want you to think nothing of it. Why would they? I mean, like, what's the point of making you think? Why would I want you to think that something is going on if I don't want you to think something is going on? They put it off on Russia, but once again, what does Russia have to do with the U.S.? Unless you're telling us that all these bird farms that produce all this poultry have a similar problem. See, by the time people get it, when they can read like I can read, they'll be like, oh man, we're in trouble. We're in trouble. See, you can't perceive something that's not made clear to you. I get it. Not saying you literally, but figuratively speaking, no one can do that. How I'm able to see the danger is because I'm able to understand that they wouldn't tell us this unless there was a danger here in the U.S. Look, just like when they said that the one Russian sub was almost on par, it is on par. Right. They wouldn't tell you about it unless there was a problem. So it's the same thing with this situation. And I need folks to understand that the cons have children everywhere. Kulovich, Stelwinsky, right? Halavak, all those motherfuckers are their children. Those are their babies. Don't know nothing, being put in a position of so-called power, using wizardry and magic and and the ways of the warlock, right? To progress their means while literally deteriorating the earth while they do it. I use a means of witchcraft to communicate this message, hoping that while people use their witchcraft, they get to see it. Come on. That in the idea that there be a blessing for them, even if they only gave it just a moment, just to give thought and consideration to what is being said to them. If they do not do this, y'all, man, by the time they get it, it's going to be more than too late. Hell will have frozen over, and they'll be believing that they are going to be healed, and they'll be burned forever and healed in the lake of fire because the water assuages while the fire destroys. It is a continuous measure of immeasurable pain, and to some of the most sick masochistic thinking, they believe it is pleasure. One of these days, people will begin to see and understand that there is no brighter day in Babylon for you. No, there isn't. Your days here are limited. Who told you that all of the black in the world other than I? And by the time they get that, there were people who were here that I've already stated don't look anything like you and have been breeded and mated with people who look like you, so that way they look as similar to thee, but don't think like thee nor feel like thee. It will be too late, and you will become a devoured morsel of the destruction that which is to take place. My brothers and my sisters, I get ready to end this out, and I bless everyone who will have a chance to see this. I just want you to understand there is no greater thing than to tell you that if you do the right things will happen. The right thing is painful. It is rewardless in this skin and in this flesh, but I refuse to say that I can pray to some so called ancestors, but do not believe in an eternal life that could be rewarded unto me for my suffering. The two things are not diametrically opposed, they fall hand in hand, but one is greater than the other. You could worship fallen spirits if you like. It doesn't mean that those spirits are going to do anything for you because they might not have the power to. But I can praise the living God. And just because he is not quick to make himself known to the sinner does not mean he is not real. Whereas those who believe that because they performed a specific or a certain act, that they should be rewarded in a certain way or that it has a certain level of reward. That is unthinkable, that is untenable, that is unrealistic. Brothers and sisters, I salute you. I salute you again, and I salute you one more time because guess what? For those of us who do understand, we already get it. We're already making the moves. So that way, in the end, we do not try to save ourselves and end up losing our lives, but rather that we do the right thing and lose our lives if it be must. And if it must be, if it is said so and written in the book of life that we perish this way to be resurrected again in the flesh and in the spirit and the soul that is pure and not made unholy by the contraptions and the devices of the wicked who live upon the earth, then let it be the case. For only, for only the few are chosen, because many were and are called. And with that said, may tomorrow be better than today, and may next week be better than the last.